Welcome everybody to PinstripeChronicles podcast. I'm Tats. I'm here, Donald and Rob, and you are listening on sportnarian.com/player. And
Whoa!
It's been not an earth-moving weekend, but there were some announcements that were made throughout the last couple of days. Gardner reaching free agency, which has stirred up a lot of mixed feelings amongst the fan base, and some roster moves that were made. Joely Rodriguez is gone. Who I don't know why. I thought he was kind of one of the more reliable of the no names that we were bringing in that really nobody knew about. I thought he pitched very well for us, and they added another catcher to the mix, Donny Sands, to replace Brantley. So, which might be, I think that's going to be something that's going to really have to be kept an eye on, is that catcher position, while they decide what they're going to do moving forward to next year. With so many of the pitchers not wanting to throw to Sanchez, that depth I think is going to come more into play this offseason than people are anticipating, more so with the pitching staff itself. So, the main star of the news really was Gardner. So a lot of people think that, they already have him giving his retirement speech, and he hasn't quite done that. Do you think that that's something that they're discussing behind the scenes, where they don't want to give the team and the player both declined their didn't take their option?
Can I just interrupt? I don't think this is as big a deal as people are making out. I don't think this is a big deal at all.
Either.
I think that we always knew that the option was going to be declined.
Yeah,
we always knew that. We know for a fact that both teams are interested in a reunion. It's just on a different deal. We mentioned on the podcast that this was prior to the offseason, that this was going to happen, that the option was going to be declined. And then as we get later in the offseason, then they will probably engage in talks again. We know for a fact Brett Gardner wants to play again. Yeah. We know he desperately wants to be a Yankee. And we know that the Yankee organization really values what Gardner offers the locker room. So for the option price that it's too much for a fifth outfielder, because he shouldn't be a fourth outfielder. I'd say for a fifth outfielder, I think we can engage in talks and bringing him back. But we have to wait and see how the offseason pans out. There's a lot of moving parts, and this was expected. So I'm not quite sure why people are writing the eulogy for his Yankee career, because there's a very good chance that it will be re-engaged. Obviously, as we go on with this podcast, I'll discuss whether I think he should be re-engaged, but that's a separate matter. As of right now, all we know is that both sides are interested in reunion, but it's going to be farther down the off-season line once we kind of deal with our priorities, which would be secondary starting pitching, possibly another center fielder, and definitely looking at first base, and of course shortstop. So after that, then we'll re-engage with Brett Gardner. Rob, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's not surprising at all if they both decline their options. This is what we've been doing the last 3-4 years since his contract he signed a few years ago ended. I remember when we signed him to that 4 or 5 year deal, it was like a fraction of what Ellsbury got. People were saying that was a steal, and it was, because Gardner was really good. But since that contract expired, this is what it's been. Every year has been a 1 year deal. He leaves. Everyone's like, well, if this is it, thank you, Brett. And then he comes back, and then he leaves, and then thank you, Brett. And then he comes back. So if he's playing next year, he's going to be a Yankee, and he'll be back a week before spring training. They have to clear 40-man spots to protect players from the Rule 5 draft, Donny Sands being one of them, I believe.
Which was a brilliant move.
Yeah. So this is what they're doing. That's probably why they had to let Joely Rodriguez go, to clear some space, which is surprising because Rodriguez was actually really good. He had a below 3 ERA after having a high 5 ERA when we got him. So he was really good for us. So I'm surprised about that, but there's always a chance we could bring him back. But yeah, Gardner, if he's playing, he'll be with us next year, and he'll probably be playing more than he should be because that's how it's gone the last 3 years. But yeah, everyone needs to just stop with the thank you Brett posts, and if this is all it, thank you for everything, or I'm so sad I'm gonna cry, he's gone. I'm talking to you, Lynn. He'll probably be back. I know how much you love Gardner. Just wait till like a week before spring, and you'll see him and his big head coming back into the field. He'll be fine. He'll be back.
Well, there was one thing I read that made me lead to maybe he is retiring. So he makes a statement. He goes, "This game has been great for me and great to my family. The longer you play and the older your kids get, the harder it gets. The more things I miss out on. Not being able to see them back home doing their thing. It's harder to be together all the time." And we see very often with athletes that have, families, as their kids get older, obviously, so that it's longer into their careers, so that it parallels. But you saw it with with Pettit, and O'Neal was another one where they wanted to be more involved with their kids as they reached high school and gotten involved with with their high school sport activities, and really wanting to make sure that there was the support at home for their children as they got into athletics as well, like their fathers, or in some cases mothers, in other sports. And it almost seems like Brett Gardner is going to be that next guy that's going to be like, you know what, the kids are older. It's time for me to watch that, help them mold into going from young teens to adults. Let me go home and be a family man again, rather than an athlete.
I can see that for sure, but it's the question if he plays. If he's playing, he's going to be a Yankee. Who's going to really it's not going to be this huge market for 39, 40-year-old Brett Gardner.
No.
He's going to be a Yankee, and he's going to probably play one more year. I'm thinking it. One more year, he goes for another championship. If we get there, we don't know, of course, but that's what he wants to do. He wants to win another one in New York. He stated this before. He wants to win again. He wants to play with the Yankees, and I think if he plays, he'll be here. I'm sick of seeing it every offseason. It's like, oh, thank you, Brett. Thank you, Brett.
Yeah.
And until he announces it, just hold off on the thank you, Brett stuff, because more than likely you'll be seeing him next year playing 100+ games in center field because Aaron Hicks is hurt.
Donald?
Yeah, we have to see how the offseason plays out. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, and we have to see whether Brett wants to give another go. From what I read an article where, both sides are interested in reunion, so I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back. But I think we know that Brian Cashman's pretty open-minded right now as to how the roster is going to play. The roster is going to play out, roster movements going to play out over the course of the offseason. So there's a long offseason. We're only in November. So it's going to take a little time, but we'll figure it out. I personally think that he'd probably come back.
Yeah, even it's not even beyond the realm of possibility that he still stays employed by the Yankees, even if it's not as a player. He's been, we always hope that, as players that have been with us their entire career, that we want them to stay with us. We want them to be forever associated with the Yankees. And very few that have left have been able to hold that. Unless you're in that realm of, the Mattingly's and the Jeters, they'll always, no matter what they do in the future, they'll always have that pass with us. But Gardner is a very solid ball player. You could see him. I could definitely see him, maybe not this year coming, but down the road, him coming back in some type of coaching capacity, something like that. So I don't think that the Yankee organization will be seeing the last of him if he retires, but that's a big if, because we don't know what's going on with Hicks in center field. We don't know, Frazier is still who knows what. They need that depth. So I still.
Well, that leads us.
I'm leaning that Gardner is going to be getting an offer as the offseason progresses.
Well, Tats, let's not forget the other big news was Greg Allen was released.
Yeah.
So that's another center fielder that's now removed from in terms of depth. So we don't really have much depth in the organization right now. The center fielders that we have at the moment, Dominguez isn't ready, so he's like probably 3-4 years away. So we're looking at Florial and Aaron Hicks right now in center field. So we've got don't have much depth at all. So I'm not surprised that Greg Allen was let go, but that's once again more depth taken out. So center field will need to be addressed. What do you guys think of Greg Allen being let go?
Well, I think the thing with a lot of the guys that will let go, I think it shows that the next wave of young talent they're trying to make room for, especially with some of the infield options that we have. They're going to be trying to see. They're going to try to see where things go with some of the fall league in the winter ball, and see what's going on while the CBA negotiations are going on. So once everything is all set in place for baseball to resume, they'll know if they need to go out and get somebody or not.
Yeah. The thing with Allen and Velasquez, they're both pretty much in the same boat. It's funny because when the Yankees got Allen, it was looked at as look at this. That's a roster breaking move right there. Oh, there's a championship. And now he's gone. Everyone's like, oh, you should have kept him. How are you not holding on to this guy?
Yeah.
So it goes to show you that you really can't judge a move until at least a year after it's done. Greg Allen was solid for us. He played a couple of weeks worth of games, whatever it was, and he was good. He ran the bases well. He played good defense. He came up with timely hits. He got on base. He was everything you could have asked out of him in that time period he was playing. I do think he would have been perfect on this team next year. But there's a lot of other options out there that you can go with. Florial should be a guy they look at. I don't know why they haven't yet, but maybe now they're almost forced into that situation, they will. But let's not forget that Greg Allen's pushing 30. He's not like this 25-year-old prospect that we just let go. Same with Velasquez. These are both guys that have been around, and Velasquez was a guy that had some big hits and played solid defense, and people are treating him like we just let Derek Jeter walk. And it's like, look, I like Velasquez.
I don't think that. What I think is regarding Velasquez, that's the one move that I disagree with. I think Velasquez had a role in this team next year. I think he would have been a perfect backup infielder, and no one can really assuage my mind as to regards to letting him go, because that's a weird optic. Dude started our wild card game. He played such an important part of the latter part of our year. But I believe the reason why he was let go is nothing to do with ability necessarily. I think it's everything to do with analytics, everything to do with the analytics-led front office. The reason why I mention that is because now we know from the Michael Kay show that Phil Nevin campaigned for Velasquez to be called back up again, because as you pointed out, Velasquez was sent back down again as soon as possible, right? And then Phil Nevin campaigned on behalf of Aaron Boone that we needed some more depth and we needed him back. We needed a proper shortstop, right? And the analytics guys kind of held their ground and was like, no, right? And what's happened? Velasquez ended up having to be brought back anyway, but what's happened? Phil Nevin's now gone because he went up against the analytics front office. And where's Velasquez now? Gone. Why? Probably because his numbers don't match up to what the analytics guys want. He's not the kind of player that analytics guys love. Apparently, he's got a really good defense. I love his defense, but offensively, absolute no in terms of the analytics guys. So I'm not surprised he's gone. I think this was really more of a message that the analytics front office is still running the entire show, because there's no way that you can tell me that he shouldn't be a backup infielder for us. I think he's been a great backup shortstop. He's Bronx guy. Fans love him. And he's a very nice player. Not obviously a starter. No one's saying that. I just think it's a bad optic. I think it's a bad look for somebody who played such a big part in our year. And it started our wild card game just to be just released like that. I think it's a weird look. I don't like it.
You also have to keep in mind that, like what I was saying earlier, a lot of this young talent is ready to start being infused into the major leagues. do you want to hold on to somebody where that roster spot could be used by Volpe or Peralta, and some of these other guys? Who would you rather see getting a shot?
Well, they still have Tyler Wade on this team, so I think that's part of the argument as well. Velasquez, I do believe. I'm not saying I don't like the guy. I was lobbying for him to be called up much earlier in the year, and I just don't think it's the end of the world that he's gone. I do think he would have had a role on this team, as would Greg Allen. I find it funny that it happened after Cashman said that we could use more athleticism, and two of our most athletic guys are gone now. So that to me is funny, but you can replace that.
Believe me, there are a ton of guys that came in, they had a good year or a good stretch that were then moved on from. The list is infinite.
Right.
There was one guy that I couldn't believe that they got rid of, and that was Solarte. When they moved on from him at third base. I was like, well, he was actually, he was holding his own. He was doing well. That's just the way the game is.
We traded him for Chase Headley.
That was where they went wrong, really.
Yeah.
But they used that piece. They moved him. Well, that was different because that was trade. So they were able to capitalize on the hot streak to get a more major league capable, well, in theory, a more major league capable player. Headley just didn't work out in the Bronx. Not that he was a bad ball player, just this wasn't a good fit for him. Yeah. So, like I said, sometimes you got to see how things play out. So it paved the way for them to go and was it Headley that went? Then it went to Andujar, right? My timeline right?
Yeah,
and
traded
look at the year we got out of Andujar. Where he should have been rookie of the year. So, and then that was pretty much all he ever. That was the end of his contributions because I think it's more injury than talent that really has set him back. So sometimes we get so hasty because we get so reactionary because that's what we do as sports fans. We react to everything in the moment. We don't, it's not like we're playing chess where we got to think 3 moves ahead. We can do that after the fact, but in the moment we explode and go, why are you making all these ridiculous moves? And Velasquez fits into that perfectly because of what he was able to do when he was involved in the games.
I don't know if it's reactionary. I'm not reactionary right now. I'm just thinking that in terms of shortstop depth on the 40-man, it's basically no one right now. We don't have one. Tyler Wade, give me a break. Volpe, I mean, he's still probably a year away, but he may be ready later in the year, but he's not really an option for the immediate. So I thought, why not have a shortstop that is a very nice backup option, just to play out as the offseason continues. He's now been picked up by the Pirates. I believe it's the Pirates he's been picked up by. Am I right?
Yeah, he went to the Pirates.
So I mean, listen, he's got ability, man. I don't agree with letting him walk because I just think that no, we don't have any shortstop on the roster right now, apart from Volpe. So obviously Cashman will bring in a big money free agent shortstop. We know that's going to happen, but it's always good to have depth. So we've taken away all that depth. We've taken away all center field depth in order to let Aaron Hicks have a lifetime contract. And we've got rid of all shortstop depth too. So, I mean, obviously, it's now if we're looking at it from Cashman's point of view, we now got a clean slate. And as Rob says, this is all about freeing up room on the 40-man in order to attack things in free agency and also protect guys in the Rule 5 draft. That's why all this has been happening.
Yeah.
Do I love that we've got rid of our athletic guys that played a nice part in our team last year? No, I don't like that. But I can see why it's happened. Don't love it, though.
Velasquez was claimed by the Angels.
Angels, thank you, man. It was the Pirates that picked up Allen. Is that right?
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, Locastro went to Boston, Velasquez to the Angels, Allen, I believe, went to Pittsburgh.
And LeCastro's another athletic center fielder that we got rid of, outfielder that we got rid of too. I mean, I'm not bothered about LeCastro, but he played a nice part. He was not a bad player when he played for us. I thought he did a
No, and it was more of where he went that got some of us in an uproar. It's like, oh, great, is this going to be another Whitley? Obviously the ages are different, but something that a player that gets claimed by a rival. That comes back and bites us in the ass. That gets frustrating.
Are you talking about Whitlock? Is that what you're talking
Whitlock?
About? Yeah.
There's always a chance that one of them gets released too. It's not like the Angels are forced into using Velasquez. They could cut him before spring, and the Yankees can go, oh, you can use a backup. That's how these things go. I mean, Baltimore or Seattle cut Cortez, and he fell back into our laps, and look how good he was for us. So sometimes these things do happen. It's way too early in the offseason for me to be like, what are you doing right now? The only move that I can really say that I'm like questioning is, well, first of all, bringing back Aaron Boone. And now you're interviewing Rojas for a third base coach job. Like, those are the only things that I'm kind of like, what are we doing right now? These roster moves are not surprising because it's what you expect early in the offseason.
Yeah.
Baseball's offseason never gets started right off the jump. It always takes at least a couple of weeks before you start seeing things flowing. And then even then, it's still slow. But now we're talking about trying to fill our coaching staff up, and we're taking a guy who is a terrible manager for a very bad team. And it's like, let's bring him on to our squad. It's like, if our coaching
what does that
bad.
say for Rojas, though? You were the manager of a major league team who spent 100 days in first place, and now you're going to be the third base, you're interviewing for the third base coaching job in the, across town. And I'm not saying there's anything. I'm not saying any of this against Rojas. It's just, a little, rivalry chuckle type of thing. Here's another Met disaster. Instead of letting him go back to the minor leagues where they got the best out of him, they're gonna let him go. They're not even going to keep him in the organization. I think the Mets are making a mistake not holding on to Rojas in some capacity.
Well, no, the Mets have offered him an unspecified job in the organization. As a manager, he was not capable. I mean, his overall record is 103, 119. So 103 wins, 119 losses.
That's not terrible for a rookie, though. A rookie manager.
Well, I mean, remember the Mets aren't completely devoid of talent. He didn't do a good job with the locker room, so which scares me because that's what the big problem is with the Yankees right now. Our manager, who's just been given a 4-year contract for being completely incapable of handling our locker room, which was breaking at the seams. There was so many problems, and it's only starting to filter through bit by bit. Because because the sports writers don't have inside access to the Yankee locker room, and because of coronavirus, they're only starting to get little tidbits now, right? But what we've learning, huge problems in the Yankee locker room. Aaron Boone was completely incapable of handling it, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to bring in Luis Rojas, who had a similarly terrible problem handling the Mets locker room, which was even worse. They had dudes that were booing their own fans and doing all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, and Rojas was completely incapable of controlling that. I think Luis Rojas is probably a smarter baseball man than Aaron Boone. I do feel that. I don't think he's devoid of talent as a baseball coach. I think he's actually got far more talent than Aaron Boone does. But as a manager, we're going to look as two dudes that are completely incapable of handling a locker room, bring him in as a base coach. It worries me. But this is what's backwards about Brian Cashman right now. That's what's worrying me, man. I mean, Rob, you pointed out, Brian Cashman said in the press conference, we need athleticism. So he's got rid of all the athleticism that we actually had last year. Right? And there's some issues with our with holding people to account. So what? He's looking at the Mets manager who did a terrible job with that. I mean, and then brings Aaron Boone back for a 4-year contract. There's some issues here. Yankee fans have a right to be a little concerned. Not go nuts right now because it's so early. It's only November, but look at it and kind of question what's really happening here. It's a little strange. I mean, do you think I'm on the right path there, Rob, or overreacting?
No, you are. Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think we can all agree with that we've all been saying that for a full year now, plus that there are issues further than the players on the roster. We can all agree this team is loaded with talent. We should be in the ALCS at least every single year, but we're being held back by the front office. We're being held back by bad coaching, bad management. And here we are now bringing in Rojas. To his credit, he took over a tough situation. You know, they had to fire their manager. Then they bring in Beltran. He gets fired like a day later. And then they had to have, okay, Rojas, it's your job. Take over, see what you can do. So I want to give him a little credit there. He took over a tough situation. However, the Mets had a good team going into this year. Now, losing DeGrom hurt. I understand that. But handling the locker room is a big issue. And now you're bringing in another guy who couldn't do that in New York with the stars, not a star setter, but a talented roster. So let's put you with Aaron Boone, who's a nice guy. Now you got two nice guys in your locker room or in your clubhouse trying to manage a lot of egos. You know, like, let's be honest, it's a lot of egos in that locker room. Garrett Cole, one of them. You know, Aaron Judge, especially if he gets that contract, he's a great player, but the ego, that happens when you get the big money. And especially if we're talking about bringing in a big prize free agent like Seager, Correa, so on and so forth, that locker room's going to be nothing but high-paid ego players, and now you got a couple of nice guys trying to manage that, along with whatever other nice guys you bring in to fill in the coaching staff. That's what I don't like. So I'm hoping that they give the job to I keep butchering her name, Rachel Balkovic, because she looks like she'll snap some whip some of these guys into shape. They won't, be so egotistical. I like what she does in the minor leagues, but I just don't think they're going to give her the job because they want a locker room, a bunch of go out and get them guys. We have your back kind of coaches. They want a bunch of Aaron Boones that know analytics on the coaching staff. So.
No, and also you want to lose her talents in the minor leagues that's developing all these hitters.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to replace her down there.
I will say in defense of Rojas, I do think he's a very good baseball coach, just not a manager. So maybe his role without having to be a manager might benefit him. Because I'm just reading the New York Post article. It says here that he's well respected within the Mets for his work with the minor leagues. So maybe Rojas, as I say, I think he's a very good coach. Just in terms of managing egos and things like that, not capable. So we'll see. Do I think he's a better coach than Aaron Boone? 100 times. So maybe it's not the worst idea. It sounds crazy, but as long as his role is very limited in terms of just helping maybe talent coming up from the minors, maybe add an other teacher, because we do need teachers at the big league level. Maybe he'd be better at that than his current role with the Mets was. But I mean, the Mets certainly respect him. Let's not forget that he was respected within the Mets. It wasn't like he's disgraced. From afar, I never had a major issue with Rojas. I thought the bigger problems were actually front office and Steve Cohen rather than actual Rojas. Rojas proved to not be a very good manager, but that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, it's only the beginning of the offseason, like we were saying, to kind of sum everything up. There's a long way to go. There's a lot of names that are going to be tossed around, whether who's coming, who's going, who's interviewing. This is going to be a very long offseason, and we can't get too wrapped up in some of these small moves that happen every winter. It's not like they're doing something out of the ordinary with with some of these releases. And it's just to make sure that you're able to reset your roster a little bit and get some, new names, new new talents on the roster as well.
Another thing we've not mentioned. We were obviously looking at hitting coach right now. We actually lost one of the guys that we were looking at as a hitting coach candidate, Tim Hires. The Yankees were looking at Tim Hires to be our batting coach. He's now gone to the Texas Rangers. Now Hires is somebody that's actually kind of a mess because he's had a very distinguished coaching career with the Dodgers and the Boston Red Sox. He's highly respected in both roles for both organizations. And I know the Yankees were looking at him. Kind of disappointed, but the Rangers got him, and the Rangers got a good one right there. It was a good move by the Rangers. So we'll be looking at other batting coach candidates, but I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't hire him.
Yeah, I think if you have the right people, we've seen. I mean, Neville was very aggressive on the bases. So, as I think you still need to have the baseball brain, and you want to have some of that aggression like Nevin had. Depending on the game situations, you want to be able to try to sneak a run out by setting somebody on a ball that you think the perfect play has to be made. That's what we saw with Aaron Judge. Everything had to be perfect to get him out. They had everything perfect, but it was also not reading the game. We need somebody that's going to be able to really read the game situation outside of the inning they're playing in.
Are you still talking about Rojas at third base? I'm talking about batting coach now. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the coaching in general. And it just happened with Nevin. So,
Rob, what are you thinking about Tim Hires? Is that a miss, or are you looking at anybody else?
I know. I mean, I still think they're going for a name that we're never gonna know. Like, and nobody knew who Matt Blake was, right? They're like, who the heck is this guy? It's like, oh, he was part of Cleveland's analytical staff. He worked with Corey Kluber. Okay, so he must have something. They're gonna look at something like that. It's gonna be a name that you don't really know. And I think that's a good thing, because if we were to bring in a guy like, I don't remember a couple of years ago when we were looking at Chili Davis, and he ended up going, I think, to the Mets or the Red Sox, and he ended up kind of being really bad. He got let go. So I think it's probably a good thing that we're going for analytics. If we're going to go for the full analytics-driven thing, just go full throttle with it, But then there's also that report that they want the yin to Boone's yang, or whatever the hell that means. So maybe they want a guy with some fire. I don't know what the hell they're doing at this point. I'm just gonna wait and see who we hire, and then just go from there. We'll just have to wait, see how it plays out when they actually play the games. I can see the benefits for a guy like Rojas. I can also see the negatives, but for hitting coach, if you're gonna go with it, it's got to be full analytics. Just go with the computer, because that's where this organization is. That's where baseball is headed. So let's hope they do it right this time, because Marcus Thames was not the answer. And I think that it's pretty easy to improve from what we had with Marcus Thames. But if you're going to go analytics, go with someone I've never heard of before, because I'd rather be like, okay, we pretty much have a clean slate to judge him, right? That was the same thing with Matt Blake. You really couldn't judge him on anything because he wasn't a former pitching coach for the Cleveland Indians, right? So it's just like, okay, let's see what he can do. And I think we can all agree he's done a pretty good job. So that's where I want him to go.
So you want a Steve Blake or Matt Blake of hitting coaches, basically. That's what you're looking at, Blake of hitting coaches.
That's what I think we're going to do. I think
that's what we're going to do too. I don't think that's the way to go, though. I think you need somebody that's also a teacher. You need a bit of both. You need a mixture. But I do think the Yankees are going to go the whole way, as you say. But the only criticism I have of Matt Blake is, when our pitchers struggle on the mound, our starters struggle, with Garrett Cole struggles on the mound, for instance, there's not anybody to come up and talk to him about their past experience as a coach and what would work to handle tough situations. That's what a computer doesn't teach you. You know what I mean? And Like, that's why David Kono is a very good argument to be a pitching coach, because he can add that relation. He can relate to pitchers a little bit more and kind of help you with certain situations which a computer doesn't tell you. So that's what I think would be beneficial for a batting coach to have. Someone's got experience as a batting coach for a number of years, that can still apply the analytics, but also apply the personal touch, which I think is what's being missed in current baseball coaches.
Yeah, no, you definitely, you're on to something when you reference, David Cohn with the pitching, when you're going to relate it to the hitting coach, that experience is vital, especially when you're trying to, end a championship drought, which is even more magnified being in New York. It's not like other teams that are in a drought that are not that high profile, I'll say. So you're going to need somebody, and I know he's never coming out of the booth, but like a Paul O'Neill type of hitter. Even maybe a name like, Tino Martinez, somebody that really understands understands the pressures of the game, high energy situations, and they were power contact guys, not just power hitters. So I think that's the type of hitting coach that they need to focus on, not just somebody that's going to be able to read a sheet of paper and go, oh, okay, I figured it out. They had to. We need somebody that has in-game experience.
Yeah, I agree with that. The game has changed so much from what it was in the 90s that you really can't teach the Paul O'Neill, Tino Martinez way of hitting. I would love if the game was like that still, because,
that's when the big game was the best.
Yeah. However, this postseason proved to us one thing, is that analytics is the way to go, because every team that was in the postseason was like top in the league in fly ball rates and hitting the ball out of the ballpark. Home runs dominated the entire postseason. That's why Donald said multiple times, the analytics guys loved the World Series. They loved the postseason because it was like, see, look what we told you. Yep. And that's how baseball is trending, where a computer is going to for hitting. I think it's a lot easier to go analytics for hitting, because you can look at something on a computer and say, look, there's that hitch in your swing. We see a lot of guys following Instagram posts, a lot of major league players on these Instagram coaches, like, this guy helped me fix my swing. Aaron Judge is one of them. Some guy on Instagram is like, he's like responsible for Aaron Judge changing his swing going into 2017. And I think it's paid off, because he was bad in 2016 and then he was MVP in 2017. So, sometimes the computer works. Sometimes the old school approach works. If you can find a good mixture, excellent. Is that guy right now available? I don't know. Would a hitting coach want to leave his current situation to come to the Yankees and do the same thing? That's why I think it's just going to be another analytics Matt Blake type of guy, and they're going to go with the computers and say, okay, let's go full throttle with the analytics thing. And is that the right move? Some will say yes, some will say no, and that's where the whole, debate comes from, and which I'm fine with that. I've been seeing it from the start that they were going to go this direction. That's why Matt Blake's still here and everyone else isn't. So, except for the bench coach, he's still here, I think, right?
Mendoza, he's still around.
Yeah, he's still around. So, yeah, it's going to be a bunch of nice guys that rely on computers, and that'll be our coaching staff for 2022 and beyond.
Well, all I know is this is just the beginning, and just get ready for a wild off season. There's going to be a lot of names, a lot of candidates, a lot of interviews. And at the start of the next season, there's going to be a lot of different faces that we're going to be looking at. Some familiar, some not. So just get ready, be prepared. But that's going to wrap things for us up today. Rob, you want to close this out?
Yeah, I'll take over for Mr. Coughs over there. Bobby Tats is a little under the weather. So thank you, everybody, for watching. here on YouTube and listening on sportnarium.com/player. Be sure to check out all of the links for social medias in the description below. Subscribe, like, share, do all that stuff. Follow us all on Twitter. We're all a bunch of great dudes and gals, Lynn and Chris and Val and whoever the hell else you want to involve. Nick, I can't believe I forgot your name. Nick, you're great. The Giants won, so I know me and Donald are happy. I just want to bring in that little football thing real quick. But thank you all for watching, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.